Let's get started. So this 1 hour, next 1 hour, I would like to go over. I have a few slides that I prepared to just to introduce about this task group and what we've been doing, which is not so much at this stage. But then what are our goals, what's being done, and then what we are thinking of doing, things like that. And then after that, I would like to just open up a discussion to brainstorm and then get your insights, some suggestions, anything like that. Cool. So I'm gonna share my screen. I have got 8 slides to share. Okay, does everyone see the screen? Cool. So this task group, they has been around for quite a few years in Tadwick, environmental samples and eDNA. So the website is there under the community tab. And so what's been happening in the last 1 year or so is that so this task group has been quite inactive for a few years because everyone is busy as we are all are. And then it's been a bit hard to keep it going by this current convener and the members. So it's been inactive. And then sorry, I forgot to introduce myself, but I'm Miwa, and then I am based in Perth at CSIRO in Australia, and I'm doing a postdoc project to make eDNA data fair. So that's the title of my project. And I presented about my project in the last couple of Tadwick conferences. And so because it aligns very well with my project scope, I volunteered to run this task group during the last in-person Tadwick meeting in Japan. And so since then, we've been talking with Gabby, who is the current convener. I think she's there. I saw her name. Thank Gabby for joining. To think about what's been already done by other initiatives, maybe, and then or what still needs to be done. What could be some new scopes? So we are working to update this website. So that's the current stage at this moment. So we haven't really finished this draft. We're working on the Word document, and then it just only went up back and forth once with Gabby and myself, and then I'm gonna open to other people to contribute, and then hopefully we finish this draft by the end of this month, so we can update the website and then we can actually start our discussion and activities. So that's what's happening with this task group at this moment. And now I want to go through about what's being done in the eDNA space, eDNA checklist in particular, because that's something that we want to develop under Tadwick. And so what's out there? So there's Darwin Core, that is, we all know, and then there's Mixes, which is mostly for molecular workflow and data standards, GGBN and Mike or Mike, I never know how to pronounce this, but this is like a qPCR protocol. So there are some existing standards that are really useful for us to describe eDNA workflows and data. And then there's this DNA-derived data extension developed by GBIF, and it's under the GBIF website. And so they took existing terms from those existing standards, and then they developed this extension. And with my project, FAIR eDNA project, which we call FAIRY, so we developed this very big comprehensive checklist to describe specifically for eDNA workflow. And so what we did is we review all these existing standards and then we pick what would be useful for us. So pretty much overlapping a lot with DNA-derived data, but we did include a lot of new terms and then to fill some gaps, and that's what this FAIRY checklist is. And what we want to do next is that we want to make some sort of eDNA checklist under Darwin Core, and also we're working with Mixes as well, so GSC. And then we're hoping that both of these two things would have significant amount of overlaps, and I'm sure it would be. And then they're going to be also interoperable. And then based on this work, we also want to update in the ferry, but that's more like my personal project thing. And then the ultimate goals of that is that we have this eDNA checklist extension that's under Darwin Core and under Tadwick and GSC, so that we can enhance the adoption of this checklist by major databases such as INSDC and GB who take eDNA data in their database, and then also broader communities, including like eDNA labs and institutions as well. And then in that way, we can also improve the fairness of the eDNA data. So that's our ultimate goal by doing this. And now I would like to introduce a bit about this FAIRY project. I try not to be too FAIRY focused because this is a Tadwick meeting. It's not my project meeting, but just because we've done a lot of work in this space, and some of our collaborators in the FAIRY team, which I'm going to show all the list here. And yeah, some of you who are there now, you see your names here. So we have a FAIRY working group, which is quite big now. We have 32 members from different parts of the world, which is really interesting and exciting. And many of us are eDNA researchers, but we also have a database managers and data scientists from, there's GBIF, OBIS, ALA, and then Tadwick community, GSC. So this is the working group, and then we develop a FAIRY guideline. So why do we need a FAIR eDNA? But then we go into more details of what data components are needed and what formats there should be to make sure that everything is standardized. And we're using this, table formats just because eDNA researchers like me are not familiar with JSON, XML, or this kind of formats. So we're just sticking to this table formats because these guidelines the audience of these guidelines, the eDNA researchers. But we understand it's not completely fair if we stick to this, Excel table. So we need to improve in that space. And then we developed this metadata checklist, and this is just a small fraction of it. And then it's a quite big checklist now, 337 terms with the different requirement levels. So 38 of them are mandatories. And they are built from existing standards, as I mentioned before. And then we identify some gaps to fully describe eDNA workflows and data characteristics. So we included new terms, and which is 158 new terms now. And so there's this big checklist, very comprehensive. And then we're hoping that this is going to address some of the objectives of this Tadwick eDNA task group. So that was about the FAIRY project. And then now this is my last slide. And after this, I would like to start up, all these questions and discussions with you guys. But so this is the proposed eDNA extension. So we are also working with GSC very closely. We're starting up this project to make eDNA extension under the suite. But then we also are communicating with Tadwick communities like now, and we have this task group under Tadwick. So my question is that I would like to discuss today with you is that how can we put these two projects together, even though I'm leading both of them. I don't think the most effective way is to run them parallelly, separately. There will be a lot of overlaps. So I want to make sure that we can strategize these, two projects together and collaborate very, very closely. And then ideally, I think this overlaps of this Venn diagram is going to be a significant amount, almost as identical as possible. But then we also need to identify some common specific needs. Maybe there are some specific needs that those two projects cannot overlap together, and that I'm not sure what it is. So I would like to also identify those during this meeting, if possible. But my guess is that, for example, on the left-hand side, I put, qPCR-based disease occurrence detection by eDNA that doesn't have any sequence data, but it does have very valuable disease occurrence records. And those might be more Darwin core Tadwig focus rather than GSC, because GSC might be more interested in the data with the sequence, well, the sequence data itself. And then on the other hand, on the right-hand side, I put that maybe mix GSC are more interested in the details of the lab protocols, bioinformatic protocols, sequence data itself, which maybe Tadwig community might not so interested in, but I might be wrong. So please correct me anything here. And I would like to bring up discussion on this space. And then once we, I thought maybe we can start with, for example, Mixes extension, and then get a community feedback from Tadwig. And in that way, we can co-develop together. Then once we have these things, this one or two extensions, then we can make sure that they are interoperable. And there are many initiatives, well, major initiatives that are really looking into Darwin core mixes interoperability. For example, SSOM and eDNA Aqua Plan, they're also looking into that. So we can get their help and make sure that they are interoperable. So that's something that I want to do later in this later stage. And then also I want to identify like what are the task groups, working groups, communities, initiatives are out there that are relevant to us. And I know that there's a Humboldt extension and the Tadwig or Darwin core, and that could be very useful for us to describe some sample and event relations. And then DNA derived extension, derived data extension needs an update. And Tobias from GBIF and I've been talking a lot about this. So we're going to collaborate together to update that. But that could be very much maybe identical or, same kind of space with the Tadwig eDNA task group. So yeah, I want to gauge this kind of, how much should be overlapping and or are there separate things. And also in the GSC side, there's a group of ancient DNA people, eDNA, and they are making eDNA extension. And our protocol is very similar. And so we should be also working with them. So I am aware about them and then we're already communicating with them. But I might be missing something else. There are so many initiatives, cool initiatives happening around the world. So I would like to really hear, if there's anything missing, and then I would like you to let me know and then connect together so we don't reinvent the wheels. So yeah, that is, yeah, and then we need to also update the task group description, like I showed you in the first slide. There's this Word document that we're working on to update the aims and timelines and things like that. But I don't think we have enough time today to get onto that kind of details. That might be something that will happen after the meeting. So that was about my slides. And then I just added this little square on the right-hand side this morning because I got an email from Ben or Stan saying like I need to cover those things. So I'm just going to quickly cover that. So about this task group, how often does the group meet? We're not meeting at this moment at all. This is basically the first meeting that we're doing. But I would like to plan some regular meeting, maybe every fortnight. And again, there's this GSC project as well. So probably we should just have a same meeting every fortnightly instead of doing the two separate things. And when are the meetings scheduled? Yeah, time zone is going to be tricky, maybe around this time of the night or day or morning. And expectations for participation to task group, I guess, we have few members already confirmed, and I can't do anything without their inputs in the meetings and discussions. So that's something that I expect from the members. But besides, I said, attending the meetings, are there other ways people can participate? So, for example, as I mentioned, are there any other initiatives, task groups happening that I'm not aware about? Then we need to bring people together. So if there's anything like that, you can let me know, connect me with people, and then that would be really, really helpful. And any other suggestion as well as we go, and then we develop few things, and any inputs from my background is eDNA, not so much about data standards and then database management. So those things, I really miss that knowledge and skills. So if you can put those, if you can help me with those things, that'd be really also helpful. So yeah, that was something that I wanted to cover. And then now, yeah, I guess I go from the first discussion point here. How we, what do you guys think about this, having two projects with GSC in third week? I would suggest I talk with few people involved in both of them about this, and then we think maybe going with focusing on one side, for example GSC side, and then once it's developed, say halfway through, bring it to Tarwik community, and then we just co-develop. That's what my initial thinking is at this moment. But yeah, does anyone have any comments on that? Or any questions in the talk that I just did now? Anything? Yes, Christy.
Hi, Miwa. It's really, can you guys all hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. It's really great to see this new energy and excitement to put all this together. Of course, I was involved 2 years ago or more when we were starting to get this off the ground. But yeah, it's quite a big task for just a few people without somebody driving it like you. So I think we're all here because we have a fearless leader, which I think you'll hear that from all of us today. So thank you. And I just want to say, I like this approach of thinking about, let's find where all the stuff that is common is. So this overlapping of your Venn diagrams, and work on that together. And then when it no longer makes sense, then these groups can focus on the specificity of that particular aspect. And I think the qPCR one is great, right? So I'm in line with your proposal of starting with the, let's say, sequence level data, setting all the standards there, and then seeing what copies to qPCR data. And there is a lot out there already defined for that, but then how it feeds into something like GBIF, for example. What are those data standards that are the same? And so I think I'm fully behind that proposal and happy to start to get to work. The one thing I will just, since I have the stage, mention is I think the commercial side of this is missing. As many of you might know, I've already moved into my company, Simplex DNA now. And I think there's a lot of initiatives in the private sector going on to standardize data because we're giving standard reports to customers because we're doing a lot of that. I saw Wild Labs is there, but I think there could be more outreach to understand what's being done there. And mainly the intersection there is the ISO standards, which are not open. So I'm here because I'm a big fan of the open model and why I was very excited to participate in that. But I am going to be a commercial provider. Or I am a commercial provider, I guess I have to say that. And so I'm excited to see what ISO is going to happen because that's what's there. So I would say one of your circles that's missing is the interaction with the ISO standards, which is relevant to a small number of groups, let's say, and mostly the commercial side of stuff. And what I fear, being both an academic in my past and now a CEO of a company, that there's this split, and I would love not to see that happen between academia and industry. So that would just be my little word of caution, and I'm happy to be here and work through those challenges with other people.
Okay. Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Chrissy. And I really appreciate the positive words about this, initiative. And then also, yeah, I didn't think about this commercial side. Yes, we do have Wilder Lab in the collaborators. That might be only the commercial. The rest is all, NGO, universities and then government. So yeah, great point. And I guess when you talk about your commercial side, like is it like sequencing provider and sampling process provider?
The full we provide the full process from consultation to a delivered report based on eDNA sampling, both qPCR and sequencing.
Yeah. So maybe like, within Australia, I can think of 3 or 4 or 5 major providers. There are some in New Zealand as well, and that's where I'm based at, so I know them. But I don't know much at all about Europe, US. So that's something that I could really get your help to cover different regions. And do you think
there's
reaching
about 40
them out?
about 40 eDNA companies now in the world that do that full process. So I have the list, and we can talk about, whether or not there's like some nominations across those to have them represented in this group or as a advisory group. I don't know, but I'm happy to represent part of it. So
yeah. Okay. So I guess something to like reach out to, maybe not all 40 of them, but some of the major ones, and then see if they're already developing some sort of standards within them, or that'd be a good way. Cool. Thank you. Gabby?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I'm the former convener of this group, and I tried but failed miserably. So I'm very happy that Viva is now stepping in. It is a huge task, and I did this because I'm the head of the technical secretariat of GGBN, and our focus are the physical samples, DNA, tissue, and environmental samples. That's why this group was also called Environmental Samples and eDNA. But it seems now that NIVA more want to focus on the eDNA, which is totally fine. But maybe this then should be also reflected in the name, because currently the scope is really huge. And describing the sample itself as a physical resource is something different than describing the eDNA with all the sequencing, etc. information. So I just want to point this out when you want to finalize the charter and the new description and scope of this group. And I think it would be a good idea to split those two, because together it's probably too much, and they could be separated in a separate task group than just focusing on describing the physical resource without any sequence information. For instance, if you just have a soil sample, it's just soil. That's it, and it must be described, and it's a physical thing, and it's a record. So, but that's something different than eDNA.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true. I'm too focused on the eDNA stuff, and but with the fairy stuff, we did cover, the sample IDs along the process, the original biological sample, but then extracts, and then the PCR replicates, and so on. So there is a way to track those things down, and how they are related is quite tricky, but we did put some thoughts on it. That is not perfect and needs improvement. So I wonder, I mean, I'm more fun to keep it more simple, start with the baby steps, and then tick all the boxes, along the way quickly. So I could separate them, and then it's not too focused on the sample ID and relation and tracking at this stage. But I do see the value of it as well. So it's hard to kind of completely omit it. What do you think from your experience? Or do you think we can just change the name of the task group to only to eDNA, and then somebody else would take over the environmental sample bits, or maybe it can go under the sample if there's any other task group that could take over that bit.
I think so, because the interest group is about the genomic in general, and so there could be a separate task group with the dedicated goal to check if environmental samples as its own resource already. I mean, they are much easier. The only problem that I have there is to distinguish between the biotic versus the abiotic because of the name. So a gut sample from an animal that the scientific name is belongs to the animal, so to speak, as a kind of a host. So that's the only problem that I see that must be solved. Everything else, I think, already covered in Darwin Core.
Okay.
So why I think this could be a separate task force with this focus, and yeah, and GGBN would be happy to focus more on this one because this is more our interest. Of course, we want to have the eDNA as well, but since the physical resource is more our focus, that yeah, we could help there a lot more.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. So we're gonna probably just start focusing on the eDNA, and then we change the name of the task group as well from the original one. Yeah. Thanks for that. And does anyone have any comments, questions?
Yeah, I have another question. So you say you also are involved in the MIX project, right? The eDNA. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Well, so both of them are in the similar stage, still writing the project descriptions. So it's not officially, up in their website yet, but it is under progress. And the team member is also very, very similar. So I really think we would run, fortnightly meeting for both of them. And then, as Chrissy mentioned, I think it's a good idea to really focus on what's overlapping between them first and to get that done. And then after that, we move on to like a more community specific one. Yeah. So like I don't know many of your names here listed, and but if maybe many of you are, Darwin Core expert, do you see any of maybe I share my screen. I just wanted to get some insights of, what could be really Darwin Core focus, and then maybe some of them are too molecular specific, and then that can just be handled by GSC. Does anyone have any comments on this part that I kind of put examples, but just out of my quick thoughts, and I might be wrong. Yeah, I see a few hands. Quentin?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about you mentioned eDNA a bit, and what specific terms are needed to describe eDNA a bit more.
So it's not eDNA, it's ancient DNA.
Okay, that's the eDNA. Okay.
Yeah,
then
that's
I mean, then there's still the same question exists. Are there other things we need to deal with in eDNA that are different from other situations?
Do you mean like what is different to eDNA and eDNA? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so
obviously it's
workflow.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so the workflow is very similar from what I understand. I've never done a DNA part, but DNA extraction and then metabarcoding and then bioinformatics. Maybe they don't do much of the species occurrence data, species assignment, but then they look at OTU, OSD, and that's very similar. But from talking to this guy, James, who's leading this eDNA, this MINAS project, is that the sampling stage is very different, like what they record. So sampling date is important, but also this archaeological site, at how many years of BC, AC were the people living and using that site. And those kind of records needs to be properly recorded in the eDNA field, which is not important for us. So it's quite minor from what I understand, but there are a few differences in that sense. So, but I'm sure like once we start talking about from DNA extractions, there'll be a lot of overlaps. So I would like to see what they've been up to and then make sure we are not creating the same, words, two different words and the same meaning, for example. Did I understand your question? Not sure.
Yeah, I was actually asking about eDNA, but not eDNA, but it was also interesting to hear that too, because I do wonder, you would have thought most of that would be covered with fossils within Darwin Core, and Darwin Core is used to describe fossils, so I would have
All
thought
right.
one of the date things, and
Mm.
there are extensions for paleological data too. So, but yeah,
Okay,
my
yeah, I'm
interest is
sure
actually
James is aware about it.
yeah, my interest is actually in eDNA rather than
Yeah, so
eDNA. Sorry.
eDNA is a air sample extension, exists in GSC mixes, and we actually took that in our Fairy. So in Fairy, we have few sample types, and one is air, and most common one is water, sediment, soil, and those things. But yeah, so there are a few terms, like altitude or those things could be different, but some of the environmental variables instead of water depth, but not much. Once you have the samples, then all the workflow is the same. Leah, see your hand.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. So I'm working together with Quinton on projects that is involving eDNA, rDNA actually, but I will just use eDNA now. And one of the discussion points at the kickoff meeting of our projects was that there at this point is no way to report about the degree of uncertainty that is related to a species identification based on eDNA data. So if you have your eDNA sequences, then you link a species, species name to that. And at this point, what we would really like to see is some kind of Darwin Core field that like expresses the degree of uncertainty about these identifications. Are there any plans to include this in the task group as well, or
Yeah,
not?
so we did address that in the Fairy checklist. So I guess like it's the basic one is, for example, percentage identity. So the eDNA sequence and then the reference DNA sequence, how much are matching? Is it 100% match? Then we can be pretty sure that this species DNA sequence was in the sample. But then if it's 90%, or is that really that species? Maybe it's the same genus, but not that species. So that's one way that we, eDNA researchers, identify the degree of uncertainty. So we made sure that that percentage value is in the result data set. I wouldn't call it sample metadata, it's the other table that I described. But then if you go into a bit more details, then the percentage query cover, and then also the quality of the each spaces. So we did cover percentage query, quality of each basis. You cannot really. Well, I guess the bioinformatic protocols, we filter some reads sequences that have high error rate. So that kind of threshold is another way to look at the degree of uncertainty. And so we have those fields to describe them, or terms to describe them. So that can be addressed by that. And I guess, but they are not in the mix. Those are the new terms that we created. They're not in the mixes, they're not in Darwin Core. So I would like to really bring those terms into the new extension. But it is still, I feel, tricky for non-eDNA researchers to understand exactly what those number means. So but what can we, I don't really know the answer to that. Like we just have to describe those numbers that we understand, and then we can, yeah, describe what it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. It
Do you
would be
think that
really
would be the
valuable.
right way?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it would be good to have this kind of uncertainty included in the Darwin Core archive, so people know how to interpret the species identification.
Cool. Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, it will be covered. Christy.
Yeah, I think that's a very challenging task that we were just discussing. So because it also changes in time, just like a species name can be, it's just a hypothesis, right? So it also changes, taxonomy changes in time. So I think it's hard to place a static number on something, but understanding that you could do it at a time, it's like time stamped against a certain reference database that's versioned, which probably you address as well. I haven't looked in depth at the FAIR eDNA stuff, but I think it's quite challenging. I want to interject one other major area, because you asked like what's the big picture and what might be missing. Having just led a big global campaign to sample lakes all over the world and navigating Nagoya Protocol, I think that there's a lot of intersection that could happen with, let's say, the people who represent the management level for the Nagoya in each country, because the problem is they have their unique little systems for registering samples and registering things, but most of the time they don't know how to deal with eDNA. They don't know what terms to use. They have drop-down menus for their applications and all this kind of stuff. And it's really annoying to navigate when they want a species name and you're like, well, it's all species that could be in my sample, or like, whatever. So I think there's some intersection there. I don't know what it looks like or what kind of advocacy or work is done within regulation and how Darwin Core is used or how MixX is used in these settings, but it's just another area that I think is quite relevant and also part of making it fair and accessible, right? So I just wanted to interject that one last thought. Not that I have a solution for it. I have a lot of knowledge having navigated it in 70 countries right now, but I'm happy to share that knowledge, but I don't know where it should be and how to handle all of it. But yeah, so just another axis we could think about how relevant these terms and their definitions can be and where they can be implemented and used.
Yeah, thank you, Chrissy, for raising this point. Yeah, I didn't cover it in this slides, and then it's a whole big avenue that is very important but very big, and I don't have experience in, and so but I am always aware, like, okay, I'm working on the fair aspect, but I really need to harmonize with the fair and the care. So yeah, I would like to chat with you and learn from you, and yeah, I don't know, I don't have the answers for sure.
Yeah, I don't either, but I just think it's an axis of maybe we think about how we're defining these terms and how they might be used, and then there could be somehow outreach to, policy, the people who implement this policy at the country level to use these terms and set up their stuff that way. Maybe it's more just a process, but also keeping that in the back of our heads that this is a highly relevant use of all of this work that we're doing to make sure that there's more equity and utility and access to benefits and all these kind of things that's under Nagoya.
Yeah. I wonder if that should be listed in the updated website and a project description, or shall we keep it aside for now? Of course, always keep it in the back of our head, like you said, but it's tricky.
What do others think? Who's navigated Nagoya and how useful is it to have, standardized terms for that? And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that might be a whole big another task group. Yeah. Does anyone in this group now have experience or worked in that field? I guess not. No one's raising
Well,
hand.
I was going to say, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Not much experience. I think it sounds like Christy has much more experience than I do. I've just read around the subject. But it is a subject, it's not just related to eDNA as well. Any genetic resource is covered by Nagoya, so even specimens that you haven't got DNA out of is covered, and it's not very well handled by our current standards, really. Yeah, it's extremely difficult. But I wonder whether you need, for all of these standards, some sort of Nagoya readiness within them, to be able to just link to and provide provenance. And we have most of that in Darwin Core for providing provenance. It's just the way it's implemented most of the time, which is another matter altogether. So I guess that's a bit of a ramble, but I guess keep it simple, because you could get bogged down in a lot of that. And so long as you make sure that provenance can be tracked very easily, then it should be okay. But part of the problem is now we can't, the data exists, but no one, it's so hard to publish that that nobody uses it anyway. And so we get all lost still, and nothing actually progresses forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
thank
on
you,
the
Quentin.
data side, I'll just interject real quick is, you know, now they're negotiating what will happen with digital sequence information, and this isn't decided yet. So I think it sort of remains to be seen how relevant it'll be for the product side, but the receiving the sample side is what's regulated now, right? And so, and eDNA is actually in this gray area in a lot of places. It is not necessarily regulated. And so it is an interesting thing, but I think it's because nobody knows how to define it and what to do. And so if we can provide that, then there can be more, let's say, rigorous provenance and tracking. But I think this idea of Nagoya readiness or compliant maybe is something that could be a field where there's like a permit number that you can put in that's related to that sample and that data. That there actually was a permit received to do it. So, but it doesn't allow reuse of the sample. The data, there is no policy yet.
Yeah, very, very important point that we need to stay tuned and then keep, a discussion open always. And so thanks for raising that. Cool. So anyone has comments on this part at this, still on the first point, it's not a problem that, about overlapping, what's unique to this GSC and Hardwick part. If no, then then once it's developed, then we want to make sure they're interoperable. So talking about mapping those two extensions. So yeah, I think that one I might leave it with eDNA Action Plan, which is a great initiative in Europe, and then they are really looking into this eDNA checklist, what kind of standards are out there now, and they're really onto the mapping, different standards. So Camila, who is not here today, but she's from eDNA Action Plan, and she agrees to join this task group in both GSC and Darwin Core. Hardwick. So we're going to work with her to get onto this. And then what do you so from this big list of names I see now, Luke, are you there, Luke? You are the one who is very, Luke was one of my collaborators for the Ferry project, and then he was very much involved, and he's also onto this, GSC mixes and Darwin Core. So, and so what do you think, Luke? Do you think we have a plan now to process both projects accordingly? That could be a good strategy.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a good plan. I think, I think you've laid a lot of the important groundwork, and just getting the terms sort of integrated and thinking about sort of how the data gets published and all the different sort of workflows will be something we continue to work on. But yeah, I think it looks like a good plan.
Yeah. So thank you. Sorry, did I catch you at the lab? All of a sudden?
No, I'm multitasking, but I'm here, and this is great, and thank you for organizing us.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm seeing the comment. Someone was raising hand all this time. Sorry, who is that? Victor?
Gabi
You?
has the
Oh,
sign,
Gabby.
yeah. Gabi has, because I was something to say, because you never let me floor, so I think I'm not going to say anymore.
Sorry, no, I didn't see it. I only saw like a few people's name in my screen, and then I see hands popping up. But sorry, if there's anything you could comment, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm raising my hand actually.
Yeah, I see you, Gabby. Yeah.
Can I speak? Is it okay? Yeah, I just wanted to, because we just talked about the Nagoya, GGBN is very keen on implementing the Nagoya and helping our members to get this done. So we have a permit extension, and more than 2 million records have permit information available already. It's a Darwin Core extension. It can be used with any Darwin Core record you want, so don't worry about this. And we also work closely with the CBD to make sure that we have the tools in place to help the members.
Amazing. That's great. So you guys solved the issue, well, not issue, but one of the big tasks. So that's great. And yeah, I would like to learn more about it. And then if we can just, implement as is into the eDNA workflow as well, that'd be amazing. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not good at talking and then, checking on the chat at the same time. Let me get onto the chat. Is there anything that I should raise? Victor shared this link on the CBD. Is this something that Gabby just mentioned?
Yes,
Traditional knowledge.
Yes, this is what Gabi was telling. So the target 13, that is about the increase of sharing benefits from genetic resources on these sizes. Indicators, the first indicator mostly is for the number of permits issued. So what Gabi said about the GBBN extension about permit is going to be very helpful to track these permits with information associated with those permits.
You're right. Okay. Thanks for the resource. I'm gonna read it and then learn about it. Okay. Anything else in the chat? Not. Oh, good. Cool. So, the next point was any other task group. I guess some of them are already mentioned. Christy mentioned about that I was missing on the commercial aspects, which is great. Okay, now I'll get on to that. Yeah, I guess there are many task groups in Tadwick, and then amazing initiatives, activities happening there. So I don't want to miss out on that. And if there's anything that we could collaborate with other task groups, if anyone knows, and then let me know. Yeah, you can raise anything now, or you can let me know later. Does anyone have any comments on that? Yeah. Yi Min?
Yes, thank you so much for your presentation and leading this task group, Miwa. I really appreciate it. My question is that I'm really interested in a topic, but unfortunately, I don't really have the resource to follow another task group anymore. But I would love to keep tab on what is being discussed. And if I notice something, for example, I'm very active in obese community, or know something someone is working on, and maybe I can inform them about what's going on. So I'm just curious, is there a way where I can follow the discussions or contribute asynchronously, please?
That's a very good question. So at this moment, I don't have anything open yet, but I know that during the last, Erica, maybe you could help me to answer this, but I know that each task group has like GitHub page, and then you can open up issues. Gabby, share something. Oh, there is already. So this GBWG is the interest group.
Yeah, and the task groups, you see the folder Darwin Core Mix. So that was the previous task force. So the task force folders would be included in this one.
Okay, so it's already there. Right. So we can use this space to bring up any discussions that we have, and then we like to get any inputs from. I guess anyone can access to this. Is that right?
Yeah, it's
Or
just a
yeah.
GitHub account, and then you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So this will be the place then that we're gonna keep anything related to this task group and bring any discussion up. So
Okay.
if you wanna, stay tuned on this and then comment anything, that'll be great.
All right. Thank you so much, Miwa.
Thank you. Cool. So yeah, that's good to know. This Stan told me that there is this kind of GitHub page that I could use once this task group is going, but I didn't know that actually it's already there. Cool. Yes, Dominic.
Yeah, hi. It's good to meet you guys. I'm working at the University of Salzburg and working with the Austrian Barcode of Life project, and was, drawn to this meeting because a lot of our work is involving exactly like what are the standards we should use for the sequence data that we're generating and how to communicate it best with Darwin Core and with all of the specimen metadata, since we are using we have a silica collection and we also sequence from our herbarium, and so we have this interrelatedness a lot between the collection and the kind of typical specimen data, but also the sequence data that we're generating. And yeah, my question was sort of whether this, so I'm not really working with eDNA, but rather with DNA from a single species or a single sample. And whether this is, I think a lot of these concerns would also be relevant for this task group, but whether I'm also rather new to this, so I don't know if there is a more general task group, or maybe it is this interest group that was just shared on GitHub. But yeah, whether these this is the right place for these concerns when it comes to single sample or single species DNA data standards and collections.
Yeah, great point. So our task group, I guess the name describes, so it's eDNA, and it's not really about like genomics data from a tissue sample or museum sample. But maybe Gabby can answer this better. So am I still sharing the screen? I just opened this list of interest group and task group. So how this task group sits is that we are here. So this interest group is what Gabby mentioned, this genomic biodiversity. And then environmental sample and eDNA sits under there. So this is a task group. Sustainable Darwin Core mixes interoperability. So is this something, maybe Gabby, could you answer to her question? Does this task group answer to her needs?
Yeah, it was supposed to be you need an umbrella interest group, but to keep it all together, but the actual work is done in task groups. So as soon as there is a task, the task group is built. And Dominique, if you are more interested in the single species DNA, you might want to check out the task forces in GGBN, because there is the current focus is single species there, and the data standard is done. It's a GGBN data standard, so you might want to check out this one first and see if there are other task forces you're interested in, and they are more or less active. But the TETRIC interest group is not so much active because, as I said, the work is done or should be done in the task force.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
Gabby.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also this DNA derived data extension of GBIF. So they have a guidelines. It's not only about the checklist, but they have this full guideline describing how to publish those data into GBIF. And then one of them is environmental DNA, but then the other one is the DNA sequence and then the species occurrence record from a tissue sample, like what you are after. So that might also help to get your needs to, yeah. So I'm aware about time. It's 1 more minute left. I guess, yeah, we should close up this meeting soon. But so yeah, thank you very much for the great discussion. It was really, really helpful for me to kind of direct what we're gonna do after this. And as it was raised by Yiming, yeah, we're gonna keep all these updates and discussion space in this GitHub page. So please stay tuned there. And if there's anything that you could comment and contribute, I really appreciate that. And then if, yeah, even just we can communicate on the email as well. I'm sure once the task group website is up there with my name, email address would come up, so you can contact me and then I can bring it to the discussion to the working group members. Cool, thank you very much. If no one has anything else to comment, I might close it and then we stay in touch. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.